this meeting to order. This is the November 21st, 2019 Community Preservation Committee meeting. Welcome, everyone. Item number one, I have to call to order. We had at the last meeting discussed to waive the minutes and present them at the next meeting, at the December meeting. Everybody's all set with that? Good. Item number one, discuss adjusting timeline calendar for phases 1 through 3 of this community preservation plan. As everyone knows, Elodia and I, Lene and Gideon, were on a conference call with Goldston, Anna, and Jen, and went very well. They heard Elodia loud and clear that there were some things we were disappointed with or not fully engaged with, and they were pretty much okay with adjusting the schedule and moving. As you can see, everybody got a copy of the schedule, the new schedule, and they agreed with moving everything forward a month, basically, and trying to keep the same dates that we already had, and just change the task that we were going to do on those dates. So the one that they didn't have in here was in December. We had talked about December 12th, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, for the next CPC meeting. She did not put it down here. I'm almost positive it's December 12th.
Okay, yes.
So any comments about this new schedule or our conversation with Goldston?
Are we going to meet with them on December 12th then?
We have our regular meeting, I believe, on December 12th.
No, this is,
Is that correct?
I thought we moved up our meeting to accommodate their
Oh,
schedule.
the 12th is the second Thursday.
But I think there was also concerns about it being so close. If it was the 19th, then it was close to
Exactly.
Christmas,
So we backed it up to the 12th. There was a question about whether they're going to come or not. I believe they said they could, or they would, if we want them
If we
to.
wanted them to, okay.
Okay?
So
Yep.
we will meet on the 12th then, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
we will meet on the 12th. Yes.
Not the 19th.
I don't believe, I thought we agreed that the 19th was off?
Yes.
Off the
It was
table.
one or the other.
Okay.
Yeah, we agreed to meet the 12th.
All right.
Is everybody clear with that?
Yep.
that's our regular scheduled.
Yes, it is. And instead of the 19th, we
the
moved it back
19th
to
would
the
have been our
12th because of
regular
Christmas. Correct.
The third Thursday.
So, let's see,
So
meetings.
Not
Are
originally
these
on the
numbers
12th, 19th. It's
right,
probably just too
Bob?
close
This-
to the
On the,
holiday.
let's, looking just at February, the CPC meeting number 2, CPC meeting number 3,
Yes,
they're correct? Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So this,
You only have to worry if it says February 30th.
So a few items on this schedule. Most importantly, the first forum, which we have delayed now until January 15th. We had a lot of discussion about that on the conference call. And the type of meeting that they're going to have more or less depends on how many people we think we can get to the meeting. If we have between 40 and 60 people, they would do a presentation, question and answers, and then break out into groups. You know, we'd probably have 4 to 6 groups, and we'd meet, you know, people could come and ask questions of each group, probably 4 groups, which would represent the 4 disciplines that we, you know, and so we'd answer questions. If we have 100 people, it's a whole different meeting. They do a presentation at a certain time. I suppose both of them, they do it at a scheduled time. Tables for outreach, that's what we talked about, you know, different tables. A historical table, open space, recreation, and a housing, and we do it open house style, because it would just be too much to have the breakout into groups, obviously. And so we don't know until we pretty much,
Get to the meeting.
you know, reach out and find out, you know, get a sense of how many people we think we're gonna have at the meeting. Go ahead, Chase.
adventure, we probably won't even know until the meeting starts, right?
Well,
I mean,
that's-
because it's not really a RSVP type thing, we'll probably just have to
Yeah,
play it by ear.
yeah, I think so.
I think they were going to have some venue for people to register online. I
Yeah,
think they were going
they
to do
did
it
it for
in
the
a
first one that
bounce
we just canceled, because I printed it out. You
Right,
actually got an
so-
RSVP
ride. Right, so
invitation.
they
Yeah.
should be able to track
But how
to
many
some
people are
extent
gonna do it?
and get a rough idea.
Right.
How many people are really gonna do
Right.
it?
I think
They just
there-
not show up,
Go ahead.
not show
I
up.
was also going to say, I think there are organizations and groups that have constituencies, and I know that Nancy Hammett had done her, was part of a group that had the kitchen table conversations. And I think they had about 130, almost 130 participants. So,
Not in one night, or did they?
I think so. Did you all, either of you attend the kitchen table conversations, the neighborhood conversations? Were they all on the same night? I don't think so. Spread around, yeah.
Because it's held in smaller venues, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah, in people's homes, I
130
believe,
people in a
yeah.
kitchen.
Yeah.
Maybe your kitchen.
Nope, not mine.
So, you know,
Makes
I
sense.
think there are groups that have people that we could touch base with
Mhm.
and build interest in.
Correct.
in
Okay.
that way.
Well, I would hope we could get 100 people. You don't think so, Leo?
I don't either.
Really?
It's hard to tell.
So,
I can tell you the experience that the public arts group had, which was all summer long, we distributed surveys to people and collected email addresses. They went around to every group you could imaginable that you could think of, and just sort of reached out, and they got maybe 60 people.
Okay,
And it was
okay.
like a-
That's a lot. You were happy.
really
Mhm.
fun,
Yep.
concerted effort over and over and over.
Yep. Okay.
and I'll add to that, actually, something I found very surprising. Was this Tuesday night or yes, I don't even remember. There was the meeting about the high school, the new high school project at the high school. And I walked in there expecting it to be in the auditorium. It was actually in the lecture room, and there were maybe 30 or 40 people,
Okay.
which was very surprising to me. I thought something of that nature would bring out a lot of people. So if that's sort of foreshadowing or sort of like
Indication.
yeah, I think, I don't know. And in fact, they were talking at that meeting about how do they drum up more interest or more, how do they draw more people to these things going forward? I don't know what the answer is, but you would think that such a hot button item would attract a lot more people than actually showed up, so.
Not to go off topic, have they even decided on a site yet?
No,
Yes or no? Okay, that's all I need to know.
no, the quick answer is no.
I think you're right, 50 people, there's a lot of meetings coming up in this. in January.
And that might be it.
There's a lot of meetings, we
Yeah.
have the EP program is kicking off, they're gonna have the December, so I think it's just a lot of meetings. And
Yeah.
it's the same people going to most of the meetings.
We just heard
I
that
agree.
last,
Yep.
at the beginning of the month.
Yeah,
The same
so
people
50
at
people,
all the
I think
meetings.
would be-
Mhm.
what do you-
I think that we should be happy with 40 to 50 people,
Okay.
to be honest. And I think you get more production out of a smaller group,
Mhm.
because then you can have those small group exercises in this capacity. Plus, there's the focus groups,
Yeah, the
which are in 2 different times. Plus, there's another meeting. Plus, there will be other ways for people to provide input through a survey. So
Mhm.
there's multiple ways for people to participate.
Mhm.
And as long as you have those different ways, I think that we'll reach the people.
Okay.
Lene, you've worked with a lot of community groups. What are your, I know you're not in Watertown, but what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think that it depends on the time of the year. I think winter, January, you don't know what the weather will hold. So I think probably I wouldn't expect a large crowd based on that. And you know, if you're having a lot of other community meetings about all kinds of other things, I think there's just going to be kind of a built-in constituency who shows up for certain meetings or who might be interested in this specific topic.
It might be useful. Well, I don't know, but it might be useful to at least look at the calendar of, there must be, well, maybe there isn't, but I'm wondering if there isn't a townwide calendar that has kind of all of the meetings of-
On the website.
on the website.
The website has, you go to the town website,
Yeah,
it has all the town meetings
but
Right.
then,
for the month.
but then the,
And it doesn't, well, it doesn't account for, well, the school committee is listed.
yeah,
So the town, but if you go to the town website, the school committee meetings as well as all the different towns are listed. So you might not have other.
Mhm.
May I ask Susan, what is your line of questioning referring to redo this schedule? This is our second, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
That's what she's asking?
Yeah, is everybody happy with the schedule, I guess, is number one.
Oh, okay.
And
So
just to
because
show you that
It
they,
seemed like it was quite an ordeal for the first draft of the schedule.
right,
And I would be shocked if Alodia and others did not look at the town.
they did,
Yeah,
They
so
did.
I would imagine that your desire, Susan, to make sure that it doesn't conflict with any other major meetings, I would hope that
Yeah.
Alodia had done that.
no,
And I would be hard pressed to believe she did not.
I'm sorry, I wasn't being clear. Is this me? What I was wondering is, if we had if we kind of knew what other community groups were meeting and when they had their meetings, that might be, we might invite ourselves to talk to groups that already exist. And it could be relatively informal, just one of us going. So that's the calendar I was looking for, not,
Oh, so nothing to really do with this?
no,
calendar.
no. It's kind of
Okay.
maybe a
Because the topic of
parallel
discussion is-
calendar for outreach, essentially.
okay. All right, any other discussion?
I had one thought. I'm
Yep.
sorry, I'm talking
Sorry.
quite a bit right now. Do you think that to have the public hearing in mid-July is going to be a time when we're going to get a lot of people?
Well-
I thought that same thing. That I was like, oh, geez.
There was discussion about that, and I think we basically said, let's go with it for now, and we can adjust it if we don't think we can at the time. I mean, it's hard now to sit here and think we're going to, but we could always move it up a month ahead. August won't be great either, maybe, so,
Probably
you know, it could end
September.
up in September, but it is what it is. I mean, we have all these things that we have to fit in, 2 public meetings, a focus group. So, you know, moving everything out a month, that's just the way it fell.
Okay.
So I think we're gonna have to probably reassess that if we think we need to, but right now, we figured we'd just leave that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I share that concern, and I would love to see the draft plan deliverable to be at our May 21st meeting, so that then things could be shifted up. Because having a public hearing to approve this plan in the middle of the summer is less than ideal.
Okay,
That, just to have the record, the meeting minutes state that, and then we can sort it out later.
okay.
You want
Can
to
I-
shift it back?
Well, we have like I'm just wondering like why we have to wait until June 10th, for the draft plan deliverable, which is, almost gives them 2 months.
Because we ran into this problem when everyone was rushing ahead, and we found out we were rushing a little too fast, so I'd rather be a little slower than a little too fast.
Okay. Just something to consider.
Right, same here.
Well, but it's not we who are producing the plan, it's the consultant who
That's
is
right.
doing the plan. So
That's right,
we're just asking the consultant really to speed things up a bit.
yep. Okay. Any other discussion regarding the plan? Regarding the timeline?
Yeah, I have one,
Go ahead.
just about so do we have a regular January meeting? For, not with Goldson, but just our committee? Because I don't see it on the calendar. When I look on the town calendar, it's actually scheduled, it says the 16th, the day after the public forum.
Right.
Is that what we're planning on? Because,
I wouldn't think so, unless we feel we need one. I mean, I don't think so. We're gonna be meeting that night.
I would agree with you, it just,
Yeah.
but just for the record, we would not have a January meeting
That's
in
my
that case.
recollection, is that we
Yeah.
decided
Right.
that we would have our regularly scheduled meeting one day earlier.
Right.
February, I didn't feel like we really cemented down whether we would have our regular February meeting, which would be 1 week earlier than the special CPC meeting with J.M. Goldson. That
Right.
was left a little up in the air last time,
Yeah.
but that would also be ideal to have one or the other,
Mhm.
unless
But
we have
the-
work to do.
The public forum isn't going to be a meeting at which we get to discuss amongst ourselves
Not really, but,
various things.
I can't answer that right now. I guess we'd have to leave that open for now.
I'm just
and,
wondering whether, I mean, it is a lot one day after another, but whether or not it might be
A week after?
useful,
Yeah.
well, either a week after or useful, even the day after, to
Yeah.
recap the forum and
Well,
to,
Jason said the meeting would have been the day after, right, Jason?
Yeah, it's actually on the town calendar
is.
for the 16th.
Okay, well, we're gonna leave it on there. I mean, that's kind of what we agreed the last meeting, that we're gonna leave all these meetings as scheduled for the third week, and then we'll cancel them if we need to,
I mean,
correct?
I kind of agree with Susan in the sense that maybe if it's fresh in our minds and we won't really have the chance to do what we typically do
Right.
in this room at the public forum, so that actually might be an ideal time for a meeting.
Okay. All right,
So we want to pencil in temporarily 116
I think we should.
for a
Yep.
CPC meeting. It's just a temporary pencil in, so to speak.
and that would be number 2 then, and then.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Okay. Any more discussion? All right, our next item was continued discussion regarding community engagement, potential formats, and committee participation in preparation for the first public forum date to be determined. Well, we have determined that that date's going to be 1/15, correct?
Correct.
So, any more discussion about community engagement, potential formats? I went through, it seems like it's going to be the 40 to 60 person format.
Is it still going to be a Tufts Health Plan or another venue, as far as you?
Tufts.
Stay, oh,
Yeah,
same
from
thing.
what I understand, they're still going to be
Yeah.
able to accommodate us.
Mhm.
Yep.
So, go ahead.
As stakeholders and influencers, are we inviting in the public officials, and are we inviting them in a certain order, or have we thought about that, or are they just going to be invited with the general public as a stakeholder, and we hold a meeting and they come?
What does everybody think about that?
Say again, I'm sorry.
I was just wondering if we're inviting the town officials, like we have the 4 councils at large come one night, of 4 district councilors and the president and the town manager, the auditor. Do we invite any of these people separately, or do they just come as stakeholders on the other nights that the public shows up?
I would think that that flyer that is gonna get redone would be, Lene would share that as our soon-to-be staff person, with the town manager, and the town manager could disseminate it like the town manager does to us important pieces of information. But we're supposed to, we were all given, not all of us, but assignments of places to distribute the flyers. So I thought that's what we were supposed to like places that we might want to distribute the flyer.
I think, I'm looking up here, at the top where it talks about drafts of fact sheet, community goal summary, all of this kind of thing, and it comes down just after the first forum. So, maybe I'm misreading this, but I guess I was expecting this would give us up here some of the graphic material that we would then use as one way of engaging people, flyers, that type of thing, no?
I think the community goals summary probably comes out of the meeting or the forum, so that would have to fall after that. I'm not sure, drafts of profiles, I'm not sure what that means. And fact sheet, that seems to me like it could be something that could be prepared before the meeting, that would be pretty helpful.
I would think so,
Yeah.
because I imagine, if it were me, I would want to, if I were interested, if I had an idea in my head about a historic project or about a housing project or something like that, I'd want to be handed something that would give me more information. I think that would be useful.
I think so too.
Well, we'll find out.
You know, and I also think, I know that John Bakian had been wondering if there were lists out there that had listed community groups that were
We're gonna
already
get to that.
active. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that got forwarded. I have copies, actually. That's coming up when we discuss stakeholders.
Okay.
So anything else on community participation preparation for the first public forum?
I think Susan's got a point. I think we should expect to have draft resource profiles as something we could hand out at the public forum, as well as a fact sheet. So I think those two things would be useful. And I think the resource profiles are, as I understand it from the scope of work, is almost basically summaries of the existing open space plan, the housing production plan, and parts of the comprehensive plan. So it's not as if it's a huge job, and we're not looking at something as comprehensive. We're looking at something that maybe a one-page per area, so a one-page thing on historic resource, a one-page thing on open space recreation, a one-page thing on housing, on affordable housing. So that shouldn't be a huge production problem. And the CPA fact sheet, that's almost right off the website. We just add some numbers that are pertinent for Watertown, that's it. So I should think the consultant should be able to deliver that.
Good point. Okay.
But
So I
it
think we
says-
have to
it
tell the
says on-
consultant that's what we expect then.
But it says right here, February 13th, a draft of
I
the
know. Well, that's why-
profiles, fact sheet, and community goal summary.
I know, that's why I'm
And I-
questioning that.
I think Lene is right, I think that information from the forum might go into that.
Well, it wouldn't the summary of community goals, but it wouldn't
Right.
necessarily.
But the
The other
other
parts.
parts, yeah, I
Could
think,
be,
Yeah.
I don't think it would take that much to
Yeah.
produce those. And they would be important to have, there have to be some materials at the first
Exactly.
forum. So I would think those would be part of those materials.
I'm sure it is. Well, get back to that original question. Do we want Goldston at the December meeting? I think it might behoove us to have them there,
I think so too.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
To
we
go
need
over all
have
these things.
a meeting between now and the first public.
That's
forum.
right.
Otherwise, we're all gonna be in the dark.
Well, they have offered, I believe that there was an offer for them
Yeah,
to
I
come
think
to the
so.
December 12th meeting. So if we feel there's a need, which I think there will be,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree.
then we'll extend that.
Either that or we have a meeting very early in January.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Depends on how much time they need to
Okay.
pull this material together, because some of us like to really chew on the information.
Well,
Okay.
the other thing, as far as the format, if it's going to be a format where the attendees break out into groups, there was some discussion about potentially, depending on how many people there are, staff, committee members being facilitators in those groups, so there needs to be a lot of preparation on the part of facilitators.
Right.
That's right, yeah.
Is everybody clear with that? Are we good now? Okay. We have anything else on item number 3 we should discuss? So we'll ask Goldston to come to the meeting on December 12th, or a meeting before the public forum. I believe, though, that during our conversation, they mentioned that they could show at the December, Anna or Jen or both, whatever we need. I'm sure we can leave that up to Elodia.
But I would add that I think that some of us expect, and Goldston should be told, that we expect.
Oh, yeah.
That by January 15th.
Yep.
We do expect some additional material,
I just assume they'll have
you know.
material there, because
Yeah.
what are we gonna talk about? That's what the meeting's for, so.
That's
I just assumed it'd be bringing, we'd have already fed them information.
It's just that's
Correct.
confusing, the
They're
date.
not gonna come empty-handed just to
Right.
look at people in the crowd, and I would assume.
So, I just want to recap, so the type of format's probably going to be a presentation, and then break into small groups.
Yes.
And then probably a discussion at the end, I would presume, like pulling, a
Yeah, they
shared-
talked about, question and answer session,
Okay.
and then break into small groups. Correct.
We might also talk to the public arts group. They had the small groups as well. It was the similar thing. Did anyone else go to that? But they also had individual tables that were set up for people just to fill out a little questionnaire, or to do a diagram or something, so that if you didn't feel like sitting in a group, and there were large pieces of paper that asked kind of big overarching questions, and people could put their answers down to them.
Mhm.
And so there were a lot of activities if you couldn't just be one of the people sitting at the table.
Okay. I'll go on to item number 4, discuss and develop list of potential key stakeholders, influencers for focus groups. Dates to be determined. Focus group date is, again, moved up to March 12th in the evening, March 13th in the morning. Gideon was good enough to, did everybody get Gideon's list? Did you? That way? That he sent,
Stole them all.
he had mentioned at the last meeting that he had a comprehensive list, which he does, and sent it off to us, which is a pretty good start, I thought. Lene, you had another list that you were working on?
It was, well, actually, it was a list
From the
from
last
the
meeting,
the
yeah.
kitchen conversations.
Yes. Oh, exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone has that.
Did everybody get that kitchen table conversation list? I believe that was sent
I think so.
also
I think
as
that's what they said.
a attachment. Okay? So it's really up to us to start looking at these lists and adding, if we can, anybody else that we think is missing, and get going on a list, because the only way they're going to have a list is by us contributing to it. Correct?
I have some things I can add, essentially.
You do?
Yep,
Okay.
things that I pulled together just as part of being a little more knowledgeable in the
Okay.
Historical Commission.
All right.
But may I ask how large these focus groups are going to be?
I guess it
10
depends on our outreach, as far as how many of these stakeholders we think we
Well,
can get.
I'm just wondering, if you want to really have a focus group that's focused, you can't have a crowd of 75 people. It's not going to be much of a focus group. So I think,
Well, we have 4 disciplines,
you know,
and so if we had 10 per discipline,
that would be fine. If we had
Okay.
75 per discipline, I think that would be a little
there
difficult.
could be. But I would assume 5 to 10.
I think we're speculating, 'cause we
Yeah,
don't
we
even
are.
know what the focus groups are intended to be. Are they focus
They're
groups?
intended to be us. For me, I'd be at a table representing recreation and trying to steer them, or answer questions about what kind of projects we'd be funding.
I guess I presumed it was going to be like a focus group for housing.
Right.
And one specific one, that if you only care about housing, this is the one focus group you should go to. A focus
Okay.
group for historic, a focus group for open space and recreation, and a focus group for.
So
parks
maybe
and
there's
recreation.
2 in each night, 2 in one night and 2 in the morning? Because we have only two
Yeah,
meetings.
I don't know, I'm just saying, we're sort of I feel like we need the feedback from Jan Goldson as to how do they see them working most effectively, since they suggested it,
Right.
I would think. But that's how I thought they might go down, but I don't know if
Right.
that's really the intent.
I agree. I think, we'll probably have 2 one in the evening and 2 the next morning, and you go to which one is represented,
I
that
think,
you, interested in. Peterson Tola doesn't need to go to the
Right.
housing focus group. I mean, I would assume he's a stakeholder, so, anybody else have any comment?
Leo does.
Leo?
Well, I think you're having two, and I may be wrong, because I haven't been here before. I think you have two with all 4 groups, or 3 groups, 4 groups.
4 groups.
Four groups, because some people can come in the evening, and some people can come in the morning.
Now you're jogging my memory, you're right.
So I think you have repeat groups, but different times, so different members of the community can come at different times.
Good idea,
Like,
yep.
some people can't make it at night, but if it's at late in the morning, after the kids go to school, some of the moms can come.
Good point.
I think that's
I wonder if there might, I'm just totally off the top of my head, in addition to focusing on the areas that will be, in which funding will be available, whether there are some kind of broader issues about, maybe there might be a place where people could talk about how decisions are made and how to put together a good submission, or, I'm just totally off the top of my head, but something that's a little broader than just informing people.
I feel like that's
No.
way down the road.
Right.
I do too.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we have to get our ducks in a row before we start guiding people on what we don't even know what we want. Like, that's gonna happen, but first we've gotta finish the plan.
Okay.
I mean, I would love to be able to say we can just start accepting projects, but we're so far.
No,
from that.
that's not what I'm saying, but there, it's just maybe even explaining the process, because
We don't
we've
have a
got 4
process.
tables, but there is a process that happens in the generic process. And just explaining, even generically, what the process is for, if you have something that you want to submit. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe we're nowhere near it, but,
Do you think we have a process now? I don't.
well, I don't think our process is at a very kind of big level is going to differ terribly significantly from processes that other communities are doing. And I think just explaining the flow at a very general level without getting into specifics, if we don't have specifics to talk about, might be helpful for people to kind of have that overview. Maybe that's something that Goldson Group will talk about in the presentation.
I mean, I guess if you're talking at a 10,000-foot level, yes, there will be an application process. It may be a 2-part process, and then there would be some sort of vetting of that. But we don't know anything more beyond that.
Well, we will
Right.
know more by that time, I think. Anyway, it's something to think about.
okay,
Okay.
on the focus groups, my understanding was it was really to be limited to those who are, quote, key stakeholders and influencers. So, for example, on open space, would include members of the Conservation Commission, maybe some nonprofits are active in the area, like Trees for Watertown and some other groups, maybe a garden club or two or something like that. And that would be sort of it. And if other people, the general public, wanted to come, they would probably welcome, but I don't know if they'd be necessarily encouraged. You really want to have that more limited audience to really get down to the sort of nitty-gritty of what do those groups see as the priorities for the use of CPA funds. and what are the problems, and what sort of issues come up in using CPA funds in that particular area. So you really want to limit it to those who have both experience in that area and expertise in that area. And that's what I see these focus groups as.
It's not really.
I disagree in that the citizens are paying for this. It's taxpayers' money to say, well, we want this group or that group. I don't think that's right, but that's my own opinion.
I agree, I hadn't thought about it from that perspective, but it's a public forum. I don't think you can say, oh, only the people who are on the Historic Commission, or, I just, maybe that's a little,
Well, no, okay, that was a little harsh, because this is going to be an open
Oh, I
meeting
know.
anyway, so they
We're
all
also
can
talking
come.
about
But
Focus groups versus the open meeting.
Yep.
So I thought you were making
okay.
a distinction between the two. You were talking just now about the focus groups.
Yes.
So that kind of made sense to me,
Yep.
because in the open forum meetings, it's an open forum, and
Yeah.
obviously anyone can provide
Yep.
input. I don't think you were saying no one would, that you would exclude.
no, I wasn't saying that. But I do think the focus is on the focus, is on those who are stakeholders and influences in that particular area and have expertise in that area. Others are, of course, we welcome, but I think that is the intent, is to garner that expertise, to garner that knowledge, to garner those points of view.
But I think we may not always know who has what expertise
Yeah.
based on what we know about them publicly. So I think, if you have sort of like somebody who is very, serious as a hobby about gardening or something like that, or, I don't know, not the best example, but, let's encourage people who may have interests in things to attend without, even if they're not necessarily kind of professed experts in those fields. That's my thought.
Well, let me rephrase it. Maybe we should target to be sure that those who do have that expertise at least attend the focus group, but leave it open to others to come as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I do think there's a stakeholder issue, though. I agree with Dennis. I think people are very aware that a percentage of their taxes are being funneled into this effort, and I think, given that, this ought to be as open a process as possible.
I totally agree, and we are going to have a public forum, number one, a month before the focus groups, and everybody's welcome. And then it's going to be an open meeting, the focus group, so anyone
I see,
can
so
come.
okay.
But we're going to target stakeholders, just what Mark said. That's what it's for. It's to focus in on what we're talking about, what we're going to fund, what think we're going to fund. I'll take this opportunity and I can say that for myself, I haven't had a chance to do a lot of reading, but if you go on Stuart Sagnan's website, and hopefully
document.
everybody has, the information on there is unbelievable. It opened up my eyes, because all I was reading about was recreation, and all these projects we're gonna be able to maybe propose, and someone's going to, and historical, and it was like, I didn't get into everything, but what was very good is that Jen Goldston writes a lot of these articles, which I thought was great, a feather in our cap for choosing Goldston, because she obviously is at the top of her game. But if you go in, and I would encourage everybody, and I'm sure you all have, and I'm the last one that went in on this, but the information is staggering. What other towns have done, different projects, it's great. So I think we're all going to have to do our homework if we're going to show up at a focus group and explain to people what kind of projects we think they're going to be able to fund from that discipline. And so I think Elodia's been harping on this, and she's right. Everybody has to get involved, and that's what brings us up to our next discussion about suggestion of small working groups to address discrete tasks such as review survey, news releases, info updates. If we could have groups of 3 or less, hopefully 3, we could meet and drill down on this stuff so that this whole committee doesn't have to get involved on, let's say, review the survey. We all probably had things that we liked, disliked about that test survey they sent, but does the whole committee, what does everybody think? Jason, I'll start with you, since you got me going already tonight with your email.
Yeah, and so I don't know how many of you read my email from late this afternoon, but, you know, I don't know, I just, look, and again, I didn't mean any disrespect to anybody, I have this vision of us, of 9 people trying to collaboratively come up with a press release, and it just seems, it scares me that, you know, I think I would agree that small focused groups might be able to better tackle something like that than kind of, you know, open forum, 9 of us just kind of scattershot, throwing in our 2 cents on everything. So I am all for this.
But now, Lene, you need maybe to give from your perspective.
Well, my intent wasn't that we should edit a press release in the meeting or that we should edit a press release by email. It was like for your information, and
Yeah.
in the agenda, I said that we were going to have small groups to do things like press releases. So that's really
Yeah.
the way I think we should proceed.
Hopefully we'll come out of this meeting with some kind of resolution that
Yes.
in the future, like, there is a focused group of people who will do that thing, and
Right.
another group might do something else entirely.
Yes.
But, yeah.
Lene,
Do
do
we
you
need a
imagine that you would be, I'm sorry,
Oh, go ahead.
do you imagine that you would be kind of either a member of kind of all these focus groups, or that you would step in from time to time? I mean, I see you as being communications and marketing, I imagine.
Yeah, I think that I probably have to be either a member or at least in the loop on all of them, at minimum, yeah.
Which raises an interesting question. If you want to have small working groups of 3, does the leg count as one of the 3 for open meeting law, or does she not?
Good question.
Less than a quorum.
Isn't a small working group of 2?
Pardon me?
Less than a quorum. Quorum's 9, so
Yeah.
quorum of 9 is 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could meet, right, Maria? Right?
No, she wouldn't be part of it, because she wouldn't be one of the 3. She'd be one, but she wouldn't count as one of the 3, because she's not a voting member. Yeah, so we could have Lene and 3.
3.
Yes, and that makes sense. Does anybody, or does everybody, what does people think about a small group to review the survey?
Is it
First.
3 people?
3 people,
I would like to volunteer to be on that survey.
okay, we like that,
Volunteer for what?
Because I have
survey.
issues with
So
that.
is that, are we,
Stole my
is
thing.
this all in accordance with open meeting law?
Yes.
Well, if
Yes,
it's
it is.
3, you're
3
gonna
is.
need
Three,
to
okay.
to
3 would
publish.
cover.
Yeah, I thought it was
Right?
3 or more you need open meeting law, but I can't remember.
That's what I
now.
thought too.
No, it's not, it's a quorum. I can't remember.
For our group,
It's-
Maria, we have 7 members, so our quorum is small. You have 9, so quorum is 5, so
Right.
less than quorum, you could meet without a meeting.
So we're gonna go with 3
No,
for now.
I think that's incorrect.
What is it then?
I think if it's 5, then it could be a 3-2 vote. And 3 members, and if you have 3 members, then you have to follow the open meeting law and publish it 48 hours before you're having a meeting.
That's what
I
thought.
think,
Okay,
yeah.
So I think it's a two-person.
so that would be 2. Okay,
Okay.
all right,
And Lene.
correct. So Mark, Mark, you
Yes.
volunteer for the survey.
May I just, because I feel like this is very task-oriented that we're talking about right now, and I see, if we're gonna form groups,
Yeah.
why don't they have more lasting membership duties? So I see a group, like, we already have a rules, like, Dennis, aren't you and somebody else working on, like, our rules and
More or less, yes.
okay, so if we had a group, the subgroup, that's the rules and whatever it's called, the rules and,
Regulations.
rules and or the, you know, the administration subgroup of of us, okay? Then there's a CP steering CP plan steering committee subgroup. And, you know, and then as more tasks come on, because to me, to just have a small group just to review the survey seems silly. But I could be, I don't know, I just like groups that have like a definition of what their role is, and it's not just one task, unless that
Right.
task is months long. Perhaps it is, I don't know. And then another group could be the communications subgroup, or we trust that Lene and the chair are sufficient, to Jason's point. We don't need to be wordsmithing.
Absolutely not.
Small things like that. I think it's always great to have another set or two of eyes, just for human nature on any document that goes out. But do we need even, you know, more than one or two people to really look at a press release? I don't know if that's really that necessary, but that's my thoughts.
Based on the comments of the first press release, we have at least two. And that was without a Lodia comment, so.
This is true, this is very true.
I think,
Let's say 3.
and I agree with you on, you know, a task group like for everything, but in grouping them into more umbrellas.
Right.
But I definitely also agree that we need someone to review the survey. I don't think the whole committee needs to review the survey. And anybody else? We don't have to set these groups up tonight.
Right.
Or these, but we could, is everybody in agreement, I guess? Of
Oh, I
kind
like
of-
the
So
idea
sorry,
of
but I know I
subgroups.
signed up for some subgroup at the last meeting. I don't remember what.
I thought it was to
And you've been-
distribute, was it to distribute the flyer?
No, it was to help with something.
And you've been doing a wonderful job, and we highly commend you for the wonderful job you've been doing.
Do you remember, like, there was something that Jonathan and I agreed to help with, and I can't remember what it is now.
It was probably press releases, I don't know.
Where's our note taker? Who's doing our notes?
We were wondering about that.
Jason and I said that at the beginning, they're gonna have to go by the recording on
They'll go by
TV.
the recording.
She's not here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
Yes, not
Yeah.
sure.
She in Vietnam?
No, I mean, it's
We are recording, right?
doing well.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, I was just listening to everybody, and I agree, communications and marketing, I think, makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
I don't know whether would you separate that from community engagement? I think so.
I mean,
I wouldn't, but
what's that?
I wouldn't separate it because, you know, I think part of producing the materials has to do with engaging the community.
Engaging
so
the
I would-
community,
yeah,
so it's so linked.
I think so,
okay.
yeah.
Well, can I offer a different opinion on that, though? Maybe the group designated to wordsmith, so to speak, the communications, is kind of skilled in language and
Graphics.
that kind of stuff. And maybe the community engagement might be a little bit different, people who feel comfortable sort of meeting with different constituents in the town and maybe either extroverted or not quite as introverted. I don't know. It just seems like that's maybe.
Good point. Very good point, yeah.
Yeah,
Naturally introverted.
okay.
I exclude myself then from press release reviewing.
And then maybe instead of rules, just because I guess I'm a rule breaker, protocols and procedures, so that that's kind of a broader term for, what I'm thinking of in particular is something that the town of Hingham did, which I really like, which I can pass out just FYI if I'm allowed to. It's a decision guidelines. Now, this comes down the line, certainly, but it's decision guidelines in general for how decisions will be made, and also specifically for the various, for the 3 areas of funding. And I just thought that that was just such a great idea, to be really clear once we get into taking proposals from people that we articulate that. So I imagine there are a lot of other things that are like this that would be part of protocols and procedures, and I'll bet Goldston also knows a bunch of them. And
Sure.
I'll bet Lene does as well.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope we may have to share.
Bob, you can put me down for helping with the survey,
Survey?
for digesting the survey. I'm doing
Here, I don't need them.
Thank you.
Bob, getting back to another topic there, is Goldston reworking that flyer, I presume?
Oh, that's on new business.
Oh, okay, all right,
I think we'll bring that up at new business.
fine.
But I can talk to that, yes. So what I'm getting is that everybody's in agreement with having smaller groups to do, lack of a better word, task. And I've had a couple of volunteers, which is great. And I'm sure when Elodia comes back and reads watches TV, besides pulling her hair out of her head, she'll be able to put this together as far as, I like your idea of more broader umbrellas.
Yeah, but I think we do need to focus on the survey because
Yep.
we're expected to get the survey done by
We need that right
January
away.
15th, yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, maybe it'll morph into that, so
Yeah.
maybe it's not such a bad thing that they're task-oriented now.
Yeah,
Maybe
okay.
as we move on, it'll morph into,
Yeah.
and maybe it won't. Maybe
Yep.
it won't, maybe this is a short-term, big effort that we all need to like, hands on deck, and then eventually, some of these things would subside.
Okay.
Can I ask
Yep.
whether Alan would be willing at least to contribute maybe one session of the small working group? Because I thought the questions on housing were particularly weak, and you're the one with the largest amount of expertise in the housing area.
Well, that's good, that brings up another topic again. I really think that, I can outreach. Our executive director, Michael Lara, by virtue of his position, is automatically a member of the affordable housing group here in town. What I do is low-income and elderly housing. We don't have anything to do with so-called affordable housing.
Okay.
It's just by statute, someone from the Housing Authority Board has to be on this board. That doesn't translate to affordable housing necessarily, but we do have an affordable housing group here in town, and our executive director does sit on that board. I know a couple of the members. You've been to probably some of their meetings, right, with Dave Leon, and I think Brett Dean from the bank is on it, and I've seen their board of directors, but we need some more expertise as far as what's called affordable housing, because that's not what we do.
Well, I think
Does that answer your question, Mark? Do you?
That leaves me sort of lost, but anyway, okay. Yeah.
I will.
Well, we can, I suppose we can take the survey and ask other people and see what they think and tap their expertise as well.
I forgot to do my homework by that date. Is it too late to review the survey
the
questions?
survey, I actually got started on it, and I also have not submitted it. I found some stuff very irrelevant,
Yes.
and I found it too long. I would never answer a survey like that. It was way too long.
So you haven't given your feedback yet?
I haven't finished it yet, and I don't have my remarks to talk about it yet, but I think it should be much tighter, and
People hate long surveys.
and I also, it'd be really interesting to talk with Nancy Hammett, because she was, I guess, the instigator, if not one of the group that put together these kitchen table conversations. And out of that, she has some comments based on that. I wouldn't exactly call it a survey in the traditional sense, but it's a conversational survey, if you will. And I think looking at this might give us some thoughts of what we already know and what we might want to find out in addition to that. Just, I think the more we can use what's already been done by engaged citizens, the easier it'll be for us.
Okay. So we could pass that on to the survey subcommittee. to review.
I would say that I thought that Nancy, I know Nancy very well, Nancy Hammett, and I didn't look at that attachment very detailed, but I recall that the information that people receive and where the sources they receive it was one of the key things they got out of those kitchen table conversations. So some people use Nextdoor, some people use all these different, and so we just want to make sure that we pick a bunch of different types of ways to reach out to people, whether it's social media, whether it's through these community online chat things, like Nextdoor, Watertown, and Pleasant Street, like I'm on that, and it's amazing what people will ask. They will ask the craziest things on there, like, you know, I need a babysitter, you know, or just like, and everyone is on there. So there's a lot of places that are outlets for us to
That
put
are
in.
already engaged, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's just if you have information, you can
Sure.
post information on,
Yeah.
in these places. I think that's the key takeaway from that.
I'd like to, as part of the meeting minutes, could I give you the link to, it's watertownconversations.org, which is this survey that was put together. And I think we really ought to pay attention to this because it's been done recently, and we should be grounded in this, just so we're not just repeating what's already been done. I'm sure there will be different people at the forums and at the groups, but still, to know some of these things is really helpful.
Okay. All right. So, any other discussion about, anybody else want to there are a couple of people not here tonight, obviously, Elodia and Jonathan, so they might have something to say about the news release, info update, and put on a couple of press releases. So, go ahead.
So I do think we need to have more beef, I don't know about questions, but definitely an engagement to the affordable housing community. I went to a portion of a affordable housing forum in Newton, and they only had gotten like RSVP for 30 or 40 people, and 130 showed up. And it was a little eye-opening for me because I talked to somebody in the parking lot, and I was a little shocked at how much need there is for affordable housing. And it's not people you would think, you know what I mean? Like if somebody has a medical issue, they get divorced, they have a special needs child, all of a sudden you tack on one or two of these things and it's pretty detrimental for them. So I think that we need to really pay attention to that and make sure that we have like, you know, they had a whole panel of people to answer questions. And I thought that was particularly useful. So maybe I can get some of those names and, you know, definitely Metro West Collaborative, some of these companies that do a private way of subsidized housing and affordable housing. And a question came up actually, what's the difference between subsidized housing and affordable housing? And they answered it, there really isn't it's all affordable housing. Or the question was, what's the difference between low income and subsidized housing? And the answer was, it's all affordable housing, all of it is, you know. So it gets complicated, all the terminology, but basically there's a severe lack of affordable housing. And so I think it would be useful to have like a focus group on that and make sure that we're covering our bases on that.
Right. Well, we are going to have a focus group on it, if you look at the schedule, in March. So we're going, go ahead.
Regarding what Maria said, I think Tony Palumbo and Caroline have done a ton of meetings on affordable housing, so I think when we get to that stage, I think they're a great resource. They've had, I think they've had 2 meetings a month regarding affordable housing in the last 6 or 7 months. They've a great starting point. Anyway.
Okay. If you don't mind, I'd like to read a few more notes from the conversation with the Goldston group the other day. When they talked about, they put the à la carte menu up and other things that we need, that we think we're gonna need, and they had the rates and so forth. That was, Jen explained, that was just a heads up on add-ons, so they can schedule moving forward. They weren't trying to like sell us on the first meeting, but they need to kind of have an idea, so when to schedule their time during this whole process. So they wanted to be clear on that. When we do the focus tables, focus groups, actually, it will happen at the first public forum. We're gonna have tables for each group. There'll be 4 tables, basically, and we'll have to answer questions from historical, conservation, housing, and recreation. So we gotta be prepared. So that's why I said to go on the website, start reading the coalition, your discipline, and you don't have to know everything. No one's gonna know everything. I mean, but Goldston's gonna be there to support us. So Anna, Jen, they'll give us plenty of support. We did talk briefly about the survey, and that's when Elodia obviously put on the agenda that we should probably break down into a smaller group. And the meeting in a box will be around the second focus forum. The second focus forum doesn't make sense, the second public forum. That's when they've rescheduled the meeting in the box. I don't know if that didn't make this schedule, but
Yes, it did.
and that's about it. So, any other questions?
It's in the blue up
Yeah.
here.
Oh, I see. There's no date there, is there?
It says distribute at public forum 2. I believe that's,
Oh, I
think-
see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there it goes, meeting in the box, correct. At the second public forum. Okay,
So at the first public forum, there'll be 4 tables, and the role of committee members at each of those tables
yeah,
will be, in part, to facilitate discussions. What we're trying to do is sort out what people think should be priorities in those areas. So I'm not sure, yes, we should be prepared to answer questions about what sort of projects might be eligible, but I'm not sure that we're sitting there saying what priorities are. We're seeking input as to what priorities are.
that's correct. Yep. Any other questions? Can I have well, before we go any further, I'd like to, everybody knows Lene, and I'd like to really welcome her. I'm glad she came to our second meeting. She's not on the payroll yet, but she will be as of December 9th. So I'd like to recognize her and thank you very much for coming tonight.
thank you.
I should have done that on the first, after I called to order. And Lene Handy. And authority, board, or commission updates. Does anyone have any updates from their respective commission or board? Maria?
Not really. I mostly gave them a big update from us, from our group to them. We didn't have any hearings in
Okay.
our last
Yep.
meeting.
The Historical Commission
Oh,
spent,
wait, I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I did, I'm sorry. Too many things on my brain, I'm sorry. I did present the idea of the educational tours and doing that the Conservation Commission, the idea that Mark, his original idea of having educational tours. And so we talked about that at length, and it was decided by the Conservation Commission that we would prefer to wait, given the weather and the holidays upon us, till spring. And a key member is away, I think, in May, so it would either have to be in April or June. So I don't know how people feel about that, but the Conservation Commission is more than willing to select, you know, a few areas that we would like to showcase as open space or conservation, you know, prized possessions that we have in Watertown. But we would really prefer to do that when the weather's much warmer and less muddy, which would probably be way into June. So if you're interested, we will host.
Great. Thank you. Great.
Are you interested?
Oh,
Are we still interested, or do you want me to, still interested to do it? Because what we'd like to do is we were gonna have a planning meeting for it in January.
okay.
So I would like to know if, yes, we should proceed with planning of that, if you are still interested.
I'm still interested.
I'm interested, I like.
Okay. I think so, yeah. Yeah.
It could be really fun if we could get a gate and a key to one particular site.
Is that Leo's house?
It's sort of secret, like I've already labeled this event, as hidden wetlands and other things. I've got a labeled name for the name of the tour.
Can we go swimming?
No.
Susan?
Well, our meeting wasn't quite so exciting. We got into the weeds on demolition delays. And Gideon was there and offered a perspective from the planning department's view about how in some cases for obvious, for demolitions that are obviously okay, whether or not the process could be streamlined in some way. So this is something we're struggling with. You know, how to make it not onerous, but also how to protect what we have. And in our history, the history of our town and buildings that are historical significance. We talked about buildings that are historically, can be determined as historically significant, are over 50 years old. So that includes some of the housing that was built after World War II, and houses that people don't normally think of as being historic. So how do you think about that? So it was an interesting conversation.
Okay. Jason, do you have anything? Lanny?
I don't know that it's necessarily relevant to what we do, but there's definitely been some interesting stuff coming in front of the planning board. A potential rezoning of a parcel of land on Galen Street, which we recommended to the town council, not unanimously, I might add. And then it sounds like there's actually a couple of very large cases coming down the pike for next month. The parcel on, the Doble parcel on Walnut Street is one of them. The parcel on the corner of Coolidge Hill in Arlington, the proposed self-storage facility. And what's the last one?
Is that the old Heinz Reading site?
Yes.
It was Heinz Reading, yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, one time.
And, the last one escapes me right now, but
Jason just said we talked at length about the Doble property at the Conservation Commission.
yeah,
And we're probably gonna we're having a letter that we did draft to give to either the planning board or, we're not sure yet.
Okay.
Who's gonna get it, but we did talk at length about that project.
great. Interested to hear your thoughts on it. And then the other one that's been in the news a little bit lately is the parcel on Grove Street opposite the cemetery that the cemetery owns and is probably being targeted for development. But I guess there's BB&N might step in and purchase it for recreation, which would be great. But all this is premature for me to be talking about. I think it'll probably be, on the next planning board agenda, and we'll hear more about it. But some interesting things coming down the pike, apparently.
That's R&D right now, if there's not a change made, if BB&N doesn't step in. Isn't that what it's zoned for? Research and
It's-
development?
Well, that would be, yeah, I think it's an I, it's in the I zone, I forget which I.
It's not- yeah, okay.
Yeah, they could do, the idea is that they would propose another biotech building.
Okay. Do we have any community comments? Leo? Anything? No? Okay. New business. Marcia Cero, a graphic and brand manager, will be presenting design concepts for our promotional materials at the December 12th meeting. Elodia talked about Marcia. She's, I believe she works for Tufts. And she had brought her up in relation to the design of the logo and so forth, and potentially a temporary logo going forward, but also, I think that Elodia wanted Marcia to work on the flyer. That, I don't think anybody was pleased with the first draft. So that's exciting, I think. I don't know Marcia, but I've heard a lot about her, and I think it would be great to have a professional pro bono helping us right now. And time is of the essence. We do have a flyer that's going to go out soon, and it'd be nice to have something done by a professional. Go ahead.
Especially after the non-action of the school system to helping, so. We
Yeah.
need a professional and, you know, time is a wasting, as they say.
Any other comments?
I hesitate to say this, but I just wonder what message that says to J.M. Goldson, that they said distinctly in the reply email that Elodia wrote, after she called each and every one of us to get our input, that we were not pleased with that flyer, but they said, we're happy to redo it. So just, I don't really care, all I care about is the end product.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah, we talked a little about that in the phone conversation, I'm sorry. But they're, you know, they were looking for input from us as well. And so it was kind of like, okay, might just be for timing and everything is to, Elodia has a source, I'd say let's call on it. And we can go from there. I
I
mean,
believe the other issue too was they were gonna charge $1,600, and we're getting it
that's for
free.
the logo.
Right.
Yeah,
Say,
Yeah.
who was gonna charge?
Goldston was charging an extra $1,600 to do the logo.
Oh, I'm confused. I thought we were talking about the flyer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Are we talking about a logo? I
well,
thought
we're
we said-
talking about a temporary logo. Remember, we had talked about something for the website, I believe, right? And then we were gonna have a competition.
Yeah.
I don't think the school's been very responsive
No.
to Elodia at all about having a contest. So now we're bringing Marcia in for kind of all of these things to steer us.
Instead of doing the student competition thing.
Elodia got nothing back, my understanding, from the school at all, after multiple calls. Does anybody else know anything about that?
I just agree with what you said, that they haven't responded to her, and she's made more than 2 or 3 calls, and we haven't heard anything, so she's moving on.
Well, I haven't done this yet, and I maybe should have done it before, but maybe using my daughter as a conduit, I could, we met her art teacher at a conference a little while ago. Maybe that would be an inroad to test, and if that doesn't work, then let's just go this route. But I would, just in response to what you said, Marie, and I understand your concern. If we were sort of, criticizing or panning the work of a graphic designer, I think that might be a different story, but I think by their own admission, J.M. Goldson, they're planners, and they kind of took a shot at a flyer, didn't come out in a satisfactory manner to any of us, but I don't think they would be terribly offended if we chose to go with an actual graphic designer to do it. I don't know, I may be reading some, that's just my take on it.
I would agree with that. And I also think it was so off the mark in so many ways that I think, to me, it just makes sense, rather than try to work something out that was just not even close. And with the opportunity to work with someone who I believe is donating her time,
That's my understanding.
and is very excited about contributing to the CPC, is just, I'm sure they understand that. And I suspect that they have plenty of things to do and plenty of clients. They may even be a little relieved, I don't know.
Okay. Any other comments? And Susan, do you think we should put that material you talked about under new business that you wanted to distribute?
Oh, sure, which I kind of did, although I didn't have enough to distribute to
Okay.
everybody. Yes. So let me just quickly talk about this. Can I have
This,
just borrow it back again, thanks.
he's talking about the table.
You're talking about this, right?
No,
The decision
she had brought up
guidelines.
about the,
I mean, this is, because I've been trolling a lot of towns' historical,
Good.
historical plans, but also their community preservation plans, as well as Stewart's site. And this just really struck me. It's the town of Hingham's decision guidelines. And it has item number A, all proposals must meet certain threshold requirements. And then the committee reviews each, and they list them. And the committee reviews each project using the following criteria, and they list those. And they rank proposals higher if they, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then, well, more than 5. And then specific to the categories of community housing, historic preservation, and open space and recreation, they have very specific things that will rank higher within each one of those categories. I just thought this was a really, really clear and could certainly be tailored to us. Maybe we might want to add a category, I don't know, but I thought it was a very good example of kind of establishing, when we get to that point of establishing a clarity about how we make decisions.
okay,
You
All
can
right.
keep it, I've got.
okay, great.
I'll send you.
Thank you.
May I send you one, Dennis?
Please.
Thank you.
I'd be honored.
Big note, send
Any other new
Dennis.
business?
Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
Can I raise an issue here?
Sure.
I think we should, at each meeting, have sort of, at the very end at least, have a little open discussion about what our next meeting is going to cover.
Okay.
And we've not done that before. The agenda sort of comes out of, whoo, wow, it comes about 3 days ahead of time, and this is what's the agenda for this coming meeting. But I think we ought to have sort of some discipline about at least having a discussion, and it may change in the interim, but about what we think is going to happen, and we should be discussing the next meeting. So I'd like to start that with this meeting and have a little discussion about what we think is going to happen on December 12th.
Okay. So the discussion has started. Anybody have ideas, Mark?
Yes, well, I would like to see a report from Goldson about where they are on their draft resource profiles and draft CPA fact sheets.
Okay,
And maybe, and I'd like to see a report on where we are on our thinking on the community survey, for example. And where we are on the flyer.
okay. Well, we should be somewhere on the flyer.
Yeah.
Flyer we took off their task list.
No, but Marcia Rosero is going to be
Coming
working
in, that's right, yeah.
on that and on the branding, so,
Yeah.
good.
I would also just like to have a line item on the next agenda that says, preparation of the first public forum.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it should just be a general, I mean, all of that kind of relates to it, and maybe it's all those sub-items that Mark just enumerated, but, and including another sub-item is what roles would they like us to play?
Yeah. So
So that we can be prepared and active participants in that process as they suggest.
You know,
Okay.
I'm wondering, in line with that, whether or not it would make sense for each of us who have commission alliances or connections to bring along another person on our commission to be kind of a second in these and to be as informed as we are. You know, what if I got hit by a bus tomorrow?
We go to the funeral.
You'd go to the funeral. I like red flowers.
You get rid of those.
Anyway, I just think it would kind of make for a sturdier, kind of more in-depth kind of knowledge within the commission. I'd like to have somebody be my second on the historical commission.
I mean, I certainly, for one, planned, I mean, it was until we changed it and put a pause button down, the first forum was gonna be on the same night as our regularly scheduled Conservation Commission meeting, so.
Right.
But I'm certain that Leo will probably want to go, because he's always at these meetings, and I'm sure that there are other members
Yeah.
of our Conservation Commission that would like to attend, barring it having other, it's not on our regularly scheduled meeting, but I'm sure there'll be interest from our commission.
At the very least, at the public forums, to
That's what-
have, yeah, that's what you're thinking.
I'm
Yeah.
referring specifically only to, like, at
Yeah.
least the first or the second, that members would go to one or the other of the two public forums from my commission.
So, Susan, I'm sorry, I'm not hearing very well. Did you say that you'd like to have that on the agenda
Yeah, I'd like, if I don't know that we need, yes, I'd like to discuss
for the next meeting?
for the next
To
meeting.
have an alternate?
To have an alternate to the representatives from the, I guess, Parks and Recreation, Recreation and open space are two different things, right? So,
Wait a minute, I'm sorry, I'm an alternate member of yourself to this
I'm
committee?
an alternate member of myself.
That's what I was hearing, but correct me if I'm wrong?
No, I think to the tables that we're having at the public forum.
I think that you just invite your group of
Okay.
people.
Okay.
I mean, I don't understand why that needs to be a meeting topic. I think that anyone that feels so moved, you know, and I would definitely encourage Alan for having more housing people there. But do we have to have a meeting, an agenda item to discuss that we should invite people that we should just typically invite anyway?
Okay, maybe that's kind of not necessarily needs to be on the
Okay.
agenda. Yeah,
Scratch
pass
that.
it off. I agree.
Any other items? For the next meeting, we're talking about, Dennis?
No, I was gonna move to adjourn.
That's his favorite line.
I know.
A motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Leo, you got lots of pictures, I presume. You must have took a ton.